This is the Atari 8-bit podcast.
One of your clerks sent a package by Federal Express across the street in the headquarters in Sunnyvale. And, that was a problem.
I'm Kevin Savitz, and this is an interview episode of Antic, the Atari 8-bit podcast. John Constantine was General Accounting Manager in Atari's Consumer Division from 1978 to 1981, then became Executive Director until he left the company in 1984. This interview took place May 14th, 2015.
So I understand you're Executive Director of Atari Corp from about 78 through 1984?
Actually, I had that title for a couple of years at the end.
Yeah. All right. So I'd like to know what else you did and how you got there. And it looks like you started at Time Warner and at Warner Communications.
Right.
And then
Warner
somehow got...
Yeah, so I
Tell me the story.
was at Warner Communications in the Internal Audit Department, stationed in Burbank, California. And I went up to Atari to do an internal audit as they had just taken over the division. And I met the VP of Finance, the guy that I was working with on the audit, and he said, "Oh yeah, you should leave your resume." So I left the resume. A couple of months later, he gets replaced by Dennis Groff, who was at the partner at Arthur Young. And Dennis called me in for an interview and thought that having a corporate guy on board would help him. And Dennis, brought me up for an interview, and they hired me. And my job changed before I got there. So
they hired you for one position, and then it was something else when you got there, you mean?
Yeah. They things are changing so quickly that they just said, we're just moving too fast. We had to change it. And it ended up being a great opportunity for me because it gave me more opportunities to go, just not inside, one little bucket, but, within the whole company. And spent a couple of years there working with sales organizations from finance.
So what was your title? What were you doing at first?
I was the General Accounting Manager in the Consumer Division.
Okay. And
the Consumer Division I got there in summer of 78 until 1981. It went from $100 million to $200 million to $2 billion in sales.
Wow. So what does a general accounting manager do day to day? I mean, what were you thinking about? In
certain, in the rest of the world, they would be doing debits and credits and journal entries. And in my case, I was managing several functions that in the sales organization, in the sales support organizations that made sense. I was managing them from the finance side because those organizations made sense to the company to get their sales and financial transactions in an orderly manner, reported in an orderly manner.
Okay.
For instance, I had three or four departments. So one was the sales order processing. So we needed to know what the pipeline was and what we were actually going to bill. I think people have these positions now. It's a position called revenue recognition. And, it's kind of a finance position, but it works with the salespeople to see where in the pipeline all the business is and when it should be billed. And then we had the cooperative advertising, which was big monies going out when retailers, stores put our logo into their ad. And I forgot the other things. But nonetheless, the international, which was mostly so supporting the international manufacturing effort that had just started up in Asia, and as well as the international sales effort, which had just started up in the Sunnyvale office.
Cool.
I did that for a couple of years. Then we set up a corporation in Hong Kong to hold the assets of this manufacturing joint venture we had with a Chinese company, and we so I was there to set that up because I was more of a generalist from the finance side, and it set it up for me to get into sales and marketing. And then when Atari got sold, it started, get my career going, working for Chinese-based companies here in the United States for 30-something years.
Wow. So awesome. So when Atari was sold, you were out at that point?
Yes, the Atari got sold to Jack Tramiel's family in 83. Is that right? 84. Yeah. 84. Came back to California in 83 from Hong Kong.
Right.
And in the middle of that, things were going so quickly in this business. I mean, the operations were just expanding leaps and bounds. While I was manager of the Hong Kong operation, Atari bought out our UK distributor, and I was the guy to go there and get on the ground and get the UK organization up and running.
So in the Hong Kong thing, what were they? Were they manufacturing hardware, or
manufactured hardware? Yes, the software manufacturing was done in Puerto Rico for the most part.
Yeah. And the UK stuff, what was going on there?
UK was a sales organization covering the United Kingdom and some other small areas in Western Europe.
Cool. So I've heard stories, but back to when you were doing accounting stuff, I've heard stories during those years about how Atari was just like spending money like stupid crazy, like on silly things. And so as someone who was there like watching the books, did things seem reasonable, or were you like, whoa, hey, just how did it seem from where you sat?
Well, it was a yes, it got out of hand, at one point. So when I came back in 1983, the sales were going down already, were starting to decrease, and the spending was out of control. So there was a meeting at the Consumer Electronics Show. The president from Warner, the group president from Warner, and the CEO of Atari introduced the new VP of Sales to the managers and vice presidents who were there assembled to service the customers coming to the Consumer Electronics Show, which was then held twice a year, once in Chicago in June and once in Las Vegas in January. So they said, the spending is out of control. It is up to every one of you, supervisors, managers, vice presidents, to watch this like a hawk in your organization. So it's just for an example. One of your clerks sent a package by Federal Express across the street in the headquarters in Sunnyvale. And, that was a problem because the company grown so quickly and the infrastructure in Silicon Valley was not there yet that Atari had something like 40 or 50 locations, some as small as holding 5 employees.
Right.
So, there were all these problems that had to be reckoned with. And they finally got their hands around it and just started, slashing. First thing was starting to slash people and then, the locations and, trying to bring things under control.
You're a guy with stories. I can tell you've got stories. Tell me something that I don't know about working at Atari.
I certainly have good stories. not things that are people must. I know people have sour grapes and stuff like that. Mine are mostly good. I was just growing like crazy. And unfortunately, we had to throw some money at things to try to get them under control. And sometimes it worked, and sometimes it didn't. I think the people at the top were truly out to run the business and grow it. They were all compensated to make the business grow.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a little bit less accountability on the bottom line, and I guess they figured that business would the profits would come if we had the sales.
Right.
Because there certainly was a nice enough margin on all the products. And then, unfortunately, I just watched the E.T. Show on HBO.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was on HBO. And, burying the E.T. cartridges.
Right.
And the game really was pretty crummy. But, not because they just rushed to get it to market for Christmas. And that was unfortunate because we finally had leveraged the whole Warner program to work. And in fact, in Hong Kong, we were given the rights to screen the E.T. movie, mm-hmm. and we chose to use it as a fundraiser for the big hospital there.
Okay.
So we had a black tie, debut, and for the hospital, a charitable thing for the hospital, and we had, the E.T. movie was being screened. So, things were really going very well, and we had everything going. But unfortunately, the video game business started to finally have some competition, where we had no competition for many years, and we slowly went down the wrong route.
Yeah. So you said something interesting. You said throwing money at problems to make them go away. What does that mean? Can I have an example of that?
Well, spend money to fix things. Bring in a consultant, add another person, just, hire people to try to fix it. To show how fast the business had grown and how much it had grown. I was its general accounting manager. I left in December of 1980 to go to Hong Kong, mm-hmm. and they decided that the business had grown so much, and they kind of replaced me with 2 or 3 guys. So that's the right way to do it. When you see that this is a growing business, and we can do something, and because in 1980 we had not reached $2 billion, we reached $2 billion in sales in 81, 82. So, mm-hmm. And then from $2 billion, it just went, it went down quickly.
Right.
So that was unfortunate, but they would. I think that they were doing the right stuff at the right time, in the right place. Mm-hmm. We certainly had set up things in Hong Kong to help the company out by holding some of the profits of the manufactured game hardware there in Hong Kong, which is a low tax rate country, mm-hmm. and we had planned to set up an R&D center there, which in just a year later would have been stupendous because Hong Kong, and in fact it's China and all of Asia, has so much to offer in R&D. And there are just terrific ways to do it now, and unfortunately we were not able to get to that point. But, we had the right things in mind. This is a law that is, Apple gets tagged for it all the time. They set up their Irish company. There's the same thing that we did in Hong Kong several years before that. You set up a corporation there, you transfer the intellectual property into that Hong Kong corporation, and then that enables you under the tax treaty that the United States set up to keep some of the profits there. So we charge little bit higher price to the high tax rate countries that we had our own operation in, like UK, Germany, France, and then keep some of those profits in Hong Kong, invest them, and wait until we could use them for the R&D or building a factory or some kind of an effort like that.
Right. So yeah, not a new thing that Apple was doing with the the other stuff.
No, it's not a new thing. We did it in 1980.
Right. Nice.
Well, it's pretty interesting how much they could do from this 8-bit technology. Really did quite a bit on it, but it just unfortunately there was not enough forward thinking. There was plenty of forward thinking about what we could do, and certainly the Atari 400 and 800 and 1200 computers were a possibility, for a great future. But for one reason or another, they just didn't. They didn't make it.
Yeah.
Quite unfortunate.
Well, on that note, thank you very much.
Lovely. Okay. Have a good day.
If you enjoy these interviews and would like to contribute something, I encourage you instead to donate to one of our favorite organizations, the Internet Archive, at archive.org. The Internet Archive is a nonprofit digital library with the stated mission of universal access to all knowledge. They've done incredible things to preserve computer history, including hosting thousands of programs in an in-browser Atari emulator, creating the Wayback Machine, and offering full-page scans of countless Atari computer books and magazines. Make your tax-deductible contribution at archive.org/donate.